Brian Kelly's also still just like a kid in the candy store in the transfer portal, so that's happening as well.
Yeah, another one. We got to get that sound effect queued up. Should have helped Casey out there, but Brian Kelly doing work once again, man, and I'm very pumped for the show today. Lots to break down.
Let's start with LSU. Let's start with Brian Kelly. Let's start with that transfer portal. Missouri defensive lineman Mekhi Wingo, big fish for the Tiger coaching staff, transferring to LSU from Missouri. Staying a Tiger, just a different set of stripes now. That puts LSU up to 11 transfers in this cycle. When you look at numbers as a whole, adding in the 13 from the early signing period, it puts LSU at 24, so 8 spots left now for LSU, whether that be recruits or transfers. Wingo was a 3-star in the class of 2021, actually played for LSU cornerbacks coach Robert Steeples in high school. And, man, it's an already pretty talented LSU defensive line. It gets even better with Wingo, who brings 3 years of eligibility left with him after a solid debut season at Mizzou, which resulted in freshman All-SEC, 12 games, 27 tackles, a sack, an interception that he returned for a touchdown. Big fish, that Mekhi Wingo for LSU and Brian Kelly's coaching staff.
And I'm going to give Robert Steeples all the credit here. He played for Robert Steeples in high school, like you mentioned. And I don't know if you saw the video of Steeples kind of addressing his team in one of those years because, as you know, he took the team over. They weren't very good. 2-8 at a Jesuit de Smet High School, I believe was the name. But by the 4th season he was there, they were state champions. Did a lot of really good work and apparently made some relationships. So Wingo, a big get for LSU. And like you said, the defensive line looking like it could be a strength. Once again, coming into this season, hopefully Ali Gay comes back. There's optimism that will happen. And you got Mason Smith, you got Roy, you got Wingo in the fold now, Guillory, Bryce Langston, B.J. Ojolari, who was great in the bowl game. You have potential for a really good defensive line, and this is just more depth for a group that's already really strong.
Joe Evans also announced, I believe it was last week, that he's rejoining the LSU football team as well. So that's another body up front. LSU defensive line was a high point of optimism this season, and really, when you consider everything they went through injury-wise, whether it be to Ali Gay, whether it be to Andre Anthony, they still performed pretty consistently and very well throughout the year. And it looks like they're going to be able to pick up right kind of where they left off with all the names you just left. Depth, definitely not an issue. Where depth is an issue in a lot of different places on the LSU football team, defensive line is not one of them. And it's a combination of good depth and a lot of talent. And Mekhi Wingo, just the latest name to be added to that. I mean, that's a really, really big get. It's a guy who's played a year in the SEC already. You know he's capable of that, and we just ran through the stats in 12 games. Was very productive for a true freshman.
And like you said, I really liked what we saw really out of the whole defense, given the circumstances, like you said, down the stretch of last season. But the defensive line in particular, holding Arkansas to less than 100 rushing yards, holding Alabama to just 6 rushing yards, and getting after the passer a little bit against Texas A&M and in the win against UL Monroe as well. So a big get for Brian Kelly at a position group that's already really strong, and more work for LSU to do still at some other positions, but defensive line looking like it could be the best group on the team.
And it wasn't just defensive line where LSU snagged one today, Mario. They also did on the offensive line. Tremont Shorts, an offensive guard from East Tennessee State, committed to LSU out of the transfer portal on Tuesday. Played left tackle, played some interior as well. In 3 years, 40 consecutive starts for East Tennessee. For Tremont Shorts, had offers from LSU, Nebraska, North Carolina, Virginia, Purdue, others. That's the second offensive lineman for LSU, as Miles Frazier from FIU, of course, got this whole thing really started with the transfer portal during the early signing period. Again, you said 11 transfers. LSU sits number 1 in the country in transfer signees, according to the 247 Sports transfer rankings. That's a good spot to be, man. They're supplementing well. 24 combined with transfers, and your signing class so far, 8 spots remain.
Doing work, especially along the offensive line where LSU needed bodies. Like you said, they got Frazier out of FIU. They missed out on the left tackle from UL that went to Florida, but maybe this is the next best option here with Tremont Shorts. Like you said, somebody who's been a team captain, somebody who has experience, and somebody who probably won't be a starter for LSU, I wouldn't guess. I mean, you got Campbell coming in. You're probably going to have Cam Wire returning as well. Dellinger played really well down the stretch of the season, but depth. Martinez as well, but depth at a position where not long ago didn't look like you had much of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Xavier Hill had some moments. But yeah, I look at that and I say probably a depth piece more than anything, but you need that along the offensive line. Injuries are going to happen. It's not a if, it's a when along that position group in the game of football. And That's a guy who brings a lot of starting experience to the team, and you're just never going to turn that away. Really big guy, too, man. Huge, like 326 pounds is Tremont Shorts. So that's the transfer, but yesterday was the deadline for players to declare for the NFL draft. Pretty much know the ones who have officially done it. I guess you need to wait and see until about the end of the week, see if any news breaks there. And then, of course, wait for guys to officially announce that they're coming back to LSU. But we mentioned Ali Gay, Cam Wire. There's strong leans and strong belief that those two guys both end up back. But two guys for sure who are coming back are Jerez Jenkins, wide receiver for his 5th season, and Jay Ward for his final season in Baton Rouge as well. And obviously, these two guys have performed on the field. You look at Jerez Jenkins, what he's done, especially the last 2 years, and becoming a fairly clutch player for LSU at times. The game winner against Arkansas in 2020, the game winner against Texas A&M last year, and had his best season, over 500 yards receiving in 2021 with 6 touchdowns. Jay Ward had 70-plus tackles last year, even fighting through injuries. He's got 5 interceptions in his career, over 100 tackles for his career, has played in 33 games. There's plenty to like on field from these two guys, but what I like more than anything, and specifically Jay Ward, because he has multiple ways to talk about this, but the functionality that both of these guys bring. Number one, both of these guys know what it's like to be at the top of college football. They're both members left from the 2019 team, and I put a lot of stock in that. I know it's from a previous regime, and we know how that ended, and the culture wasn't great and whatnot, but those two guys, along with someone like Miles Brennan, they understand how to do it. They know what it takes. LSU got complacent after 2019, and instead, then they got focused on trying to recreate 2019, which was never feasible when all you really needed to do was build the culture back up. You weren't ever going to replicate that entire season, but you could get that culture back up. They got complacent, couldn't do it. But these players, they know what it's like, and I put a lot of value in that when you bring in a new staff who's trying to get it back to that level, to lean on guys like that. Another bit of functionality for Jay Ward, look at the defensive back room. You still need spots there. That's a guy who can be flexible and play either corner or safety. So depending on if you don't land somebody else from, say, a starting cornerback or whatnot, perhaps Jay Ward can kick down and play there. You still have Sage Ryan. You've got Major Burns. Fauché coming in from Arkansas. Him and Burns have both started at safety in the SEC. Maybe you have those two guys go and you kick Jay Ward down. So I like the functionality of him on the field and what he can do there, but also the leadership and their role in bringing LSU back to a championship culture that I think they can play under this new staff.
Well said, man. Big for LSU to get both these guys back, and what an opportunity, in my opinion, for both Jay Ward and for Jerez Jenkins. Like you said, the flexibility with Jay is huge. He might have to move to cornerback given the bodies right now, but getting him back in the fold is huge. Somebody who's shown clutch capabilities for the LSU defense. And then Jerez Jenkins, you could definitely say the same thing. Made the big play against A&M, also made a big play against Florida that LSU needed to have in that win. And Jerez Jenkins, Musso, reminds me a little bit of like a Russell Gage. Like, he goes out there, not the most bolsterous guy, but kind of leads by example, provides very, very valuable leadership for some of the younger guys on this roster. And somebody who, like Russell Gage, I could see have some success on the next level. He's been around. He's seen a lot of stuff, like you said, and having him back in a wide receiver room that's really, really talented, but also has a lot of youth is huge for LSU. Jerez Jenkins and Jay Ward coming back is going to be critical for this team, and it presents a big opportunity for them at the end of their LSU careers.
Just 2 upperclassmen in that LSU receivers room, Jerez Jenkins and Keishawn Butte. Everybody else is a sophomore or younger, so that's another great point, Mario. Yes, the leadership that he can provide in that room as the veteran presence. I like the Russell Gage comparison too. His hurdle count not quite as high as Russell Gage, but that's fine. The guy's a freak show athletically. The speed absolutely plays for Jerez Jenkins.